Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to start off by saying thank you for all the love and support that I got with my first YouTube video. Thank you for all the likes, for all the comments, for all the subscribers. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to share more photography content with you guys. So for today's video, I want to talk about buying your first photography camera. It could be really fun and exciting, but it could also be really overwhelming. And at the end of the day, it's a really big investment. And so here are 5 quick tips before you buy. Number 1, buy used. There's B&H, there's Adorama, KEH, OfferUp, Craigslist, Facebook Market. There's a ton of places that you can look. I've seen camera bodies that are $1,000 brand new go for about $400 to $500 used online. And so if you had $1,000 for your budget, my recommendation would be to buy used instead of brand new, and use the remaining money that you have for things like a really good lens, a hard drive, an SD card, extra batteries, an editing software that will help you edit your photos. Here's a personal example of how much I've saved by buying used. At that time, the Sony a7 III cost $2,000 plus tax brand new, but I got it for $1,600 used. At the time, the Zeiss 55mm 1.8 cost $900 plus tax brand new, but I got it for $600. And finally, at that time, the Sony 35mm 1.8 cost $700 plus tax brand new, but I got it for $550 used. So I saved almost $1,000 on those 3 items just by buying it used. Tip number 2, lenses are more important than the camera body. This is just my personal opinion, but I would suggest not to get a kit lens unless it's all that you can afford during that time, in which case that's totally okay. You can work with whatever you have and still get great images from it. And the reason why I don't suggest a kit lens is because number 1, they're really bad in low light, and number 2, it doesn't give you that nice shallow depth of field that allows you to separate your subject from the background. So my recommendation would be to spend less on the camera body and buy a great lens instead. I would also do some research on different types of lenses that each brand has and how much they are. So how many lenses do they have? Are they affordable? You're not only buying a camera body, you're also buying into an ecosystem. And sometimes the lenses can be the determining factor in which camera body you buy first. Tip number 3, rent or borrow from a friend. I would suggest renting a camera body before you buy it, just to see what your experience with it is like. Is it too heavy? Is it too light? How's the grip? Is it too small? Is it uncomfortable in your hands? Here are some places that you can rent online. There's Lens Rental, Borrow Lenses, Adorama, Sammy's Camera. Depending on where you live, there might be some local camera shops that will allow you to rent some camera bodies and some lenses. So I highly recommend that you would rent these cameras first before making that investment. Tip number 4, you don't need the latest and greatest gear. Buying gear now is a lot different than even 4 years ago when I first got my camera. Camera bodies that used to be really expensive are now a lot cheaper and more accessible, so take full advantage of that. Tip number 5, try to sell or trade things that you no longer use. Typically when people buy their first camera, they've been saving up for months, or maybe they even dipped into their savings account. But what I did was sell items that I no longer wanted or needed. I used to have a vintage clothing collection, and I sold everything to get my first camera. So look around your home and see if there's any items that you're no longer using or no longer want, and try to sell them so that you can get your first camera. Here's a quick recap of what to consider before you buy your first camera. Buy used, lenses are more important, rent first, you don't need the latest and greatest gear, and lastly, try to sell or trade things that you no longer use. I hope that this video was helpful as you look to buy your first camera. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and I'd also love to know what your first camera body was down in the comment section below. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.